Hi, welcome to SBR Videos. I'm Peter Loshak. Today is April 6th, and we are talking with SBR contributing baseball writer Ian Cameron. We're doing our regular series where we take a look ahead to upcoming series in baseball and discuss which series might have value one way or the other, think about upcoming pitching matchups we might be looking towards to value. Ian Cameron, thanks for being back with us.
It's great to be here, Peter. Looking forward to it.
All right, so we still have only a few games under our belts for the regular season to look at. But the first series I'm gonna bring up, Ian Cameron. Don't laugh at me, but just tell me what you think. Philly at the Mets. Now the Mets are going to be massive favorites in this series. We know that, but they might have such a big edge over Philly that they'll actually have value despite being, minus 200 or minus 240 or whatever their average line winds up being in this series. What do you think about that? Mets over Philly.
Yeah, the Phillies definitely have a ton of issues, Peter, coming into the season. There's no question. Consensus is this is one of the worst teams in Major League Baseball. The lineup, pretty much, once you get outside of the top three hitters, Odubel Herrera, Maikel Franco, I think, is going to have a tremendous year offensively for this Phillies lineup. But outside of that, the 4 through 9 spots in this lineup are very iffy at best in terms of consistent production. The starting rotation leaves a lot to be desired. Look no further than Jeremy Hellickson being the ace, the opening day pitcher for this Phillies team. So that's an issue. And when you look ahead to the probable starters, now keep in mind, these are probable starting pitching matchups that we're seeing here as of right now for this Phillies-Mets series. Friday, you've got Jared Eichhoff for the Phillies against Jake DeGrom for the New York Mets. That would be a significant disadvantage for the Phillies. Saturday, Vince Velasquez against Steven Matz, a lefty with some potential for the New York Mets in that one. Sunday, you've got Jeremy Hellickson taking the mound against Bartolo Colon. So maybe in that one, especially the way Hellickson pitched against the Cincinnati Reds, you give the Phillies maybe a slight edge over Bartolo Colon, but Colon's crafty, he's savvy, he's a veteran. I know he's an old guy now, and he's a little overweight, out of shape, we get that, but he's still a savvy, crafty pitcher, so you can never count him out, and he's facing a little bit of a weak lineup. But overall, Peter, you're absolutely right. It's going to be tough for the Phillies to win this series. If you're going to bet the Mets, though, they're probably going to be pretty heavily favored. More value in maybe looking at the run line, minus 1.5 runs in games to support the Mets in this series, because you'll get a much better price. And this is a better lineup than they've had in the past. Walker is over, Yoenis Cespedes. I know he's got some fielding issues. That defense, it leaves a lot to be desired with him at times, but he can still hit. It's a little bit of a better lineup. I think Michael Conforto is going to be a good hitter for this Mets team. So yeah, the Phillies definitely going to be up against it. It's just a question of what numbers we get on a game-by-game basis here.
Hopefully they won't be too inflated. Hopefully they won't be in the 300s, which who knows, we could see. But laugh at me all you want. My initial thoughts are I'm going to be looking and betting on the Mets over Philly. And then another series in a similar vein, Cards at Atlanta. Atlanta also, they're Freddie Freeman and not much else. And, they're going to be probably a bad team this year, probably overvalued in spots despite how bad everyone knows they're going to be. And they're going to be at home against the Cardinals. And the question is just, do the Cardinals have what it takes? Are they good enough to justify the favorite lines that they will be? They won't be in the stratosphere being on the road. I'm thinking that, the Cardinals probably win 2 out of these upcoming 3 games and probably wind up coming out of the series with value. What do you think?
Yeah, and especially if they come out of the Pittsburgh series, which they're playing right now, getting swept, which is a possibility. I mean, the St. Louis Cardinals are going to be looking to avoid a sweep against Pittsburgh tonight, and if they do lose that game, get swept by the Pirates, you got to figure against Atlanta this weekend, they're going to be in a little bit of a surly mood, wanting to make amends for that. From a pitching standpoint, there's question marks still with the Cardinals. These are actually 2 teams I'm not high on right now, early on in the season, at least until I get a little bit more of a glimpse into what these teams are offering. They're more of wait and see, sit back, wait and see kind of approach that I'm taking right now early on here in April with both the Cardinals and the Braves. I mean, when you look at probable starters on Friday, Jaime Garcia, the lefty for the Cardinals, taking on Matt Whistler for the Atlanta Braves. I think that young kid, Whistler, for the Braves might have a little bit of upside, but again, he's still young. We still want to see him develop as time goes on. Saturday, it's Carlos Martinez for the St. Louis Cardinals. He had a few stints on the DL last year, but again, he's going to be a solid pitcher. I think for the Cardinals, he'll be against Julio Teheran, who is Atlanta's ace. That'll be a good matchup on Saturday. Sunday, it's Adam Wainwright, a guy that I've got question marks for. this season. Adam Wainwright's getting older. He's had some injury issues. He hasn't quite pitched as well as he did a few years ago when he was arguably the ace on this Cardinals rotation. He's facing Williams Perez on Sunday. So that one's a little bit up in the air for me because I'm just not sure I trust Wainwright this soon, this early in the season. So when you look at this series, the Cardinals, considering just the value that they've been at in the betting markets in recent seasons, I mean, they've been priced like one of the better teams in the National League. I think this is still a good team. You never want to underestimate a team that has just run so very well.
Right.
Top to bottom. It's been one of the best run organizations in baseball for decades now. They just do things the right way. They develop pitchers the right way. They just, draft well and they stockpile their farm system well. And these guys are ready to come up and basically play well and go right on and plug them right into this team right away and have success. But I think the Cardinals still could be taking a little bit of a step backward. As for the Atlanta Braves, though, we've seen it already in the National Series. Going to have trouble scoring runs. Freddie Freeman, their one consistent bat. Nick Markakis, maybe you leave the door open for him to have a decent season offensively, but it's still not a potent lineup by any stretch. Still question marks in the rotation. The bullpen is another area of concern as well for me with this Atlanta Braves team. A team much like the Phillies. I mean, this could be a bottom feeder battle between the Phillies and Braves this year in the National League East. So Atlanta's a team, I don't want much of a part of, but at the same time, Peter, St. Louis is a team I've got some question marks I have some question marks with this season as well. So this is one of those series, probably more of a wait and see, observe and analyze, watch the games and see what we can use moving forward with these two teams.
All right, so Garcia, Martinez, and Wainwright, three names that in past years were pretty enticing to bet on. You're not so high on that as a group right now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just these are guys that have potential for this St. Louis team, but I want to sit back and observe. This is one of those baseball is one of those sports, Peter. I just don't want to rush into things in the very first week of the season. I really want to see starting pitchers. What do they have to offer this first week of the season? How do they look? Is their velocity good? Are their pitch counts somewhat manageable? Are they laboring through innings? Are there going to be innings where they got 2-3 guys on base every inning and they're slithering their way out of trouble on a inning on a per inning basis? So those are things I want to watch for involving the St. Louis Cardinals. Just a team that I'd rather observe early in the season before getting involved betting wise.
Okay, fair enough. Ian Cameron, lukewarm on the Cards over Atlanta this weekend. And then the third series, the last series that caught my eye, I have to ask about Cubs at Arizona. The Cubs, obviously expectations sky high. Everyone knows how good / great they're going to be this year. But first two games they were not overvalued. They got convincing wins over the Angels at at very modest road favorite lines. Now this weekend they have another road series at Arizona. 4 games against Arizona. Maybe they'll have overall value in those 4 games as well, despite being probably a moderate road favorite overall on their average lines.
Here's the conundrum with the Chicago Cubs. Okay, I said earlier in the week in a video that I think they're going to be overvalued. That being said, boy, have they looked impressive. I mean, through 2 games. So it's one of those situations where you have to be a little bit careful. You want to look for maybe value to go against them in certain spots, but right now you can't argue with 15-1 through 2 games against the LA Angels. Now, granted, the LA Angels are not a team that I'm very high on entering the season. So the Chicago Cubs taking care of business as I kind of expected they might here. We'll see what they do with the Arizona Diamondbacks here this weekend. Arizona, boy, I mean, the A.J. Pollock injury, boy, it's huge.
Yeah.
For the Arizona Diamondbacks. Leadoff hitter, one of their best hitters right there with Paul Goldschmidt on this team in terms of offensive production. I think being without him is going to be a tremendous blow for the Arizona Diamondbacks, and how they cope with that moving forward. It's going to be an intriguing thing to watch. I mean, when you look at the matchups here between the Cubs and Diamondbacks, you got Lackey for the Cubs on Thursday against Ruby De La Rosa for Arizona in the first game of that series. Jason Hamill for the Chicago Cubs against Robbie Ray, the lefty, Friday in that series. Saturday, it's Kyle Hendricks against Zach Greinke. And how about Greinke getting absolutely lit up by the Colorado Rockies last night? Just unexpected and very rocky, no pun intended, debut for Greinke there last night facing Colorado in his Arizona debut. And then Sunday in this series, you've got Jake Arrieta, Cubs ace, looked very good, obviously, in the opener against the LA Angels, taking on Shelby Miller in the Sunday series finale. So again, the Arizona Diamondbacks, I was actually a lot more high on this team before the A.J. Pollock injury. I really do believe that's significant. And again, after Greinke gets absolutely smashed by the Rockies last night, that's a concern because Zach Greinke's a guy that the Diamondbacks are going to be counting upon to deliver quality start after quality start and wins throughout the course of the season. So, you don't want to obviously write off Zach Greinke after one start. Everybody's allowed to have one bad, rotten outing, but it's definitely going to be interesting now to see how Greinke bounces back in his next start, and if this is going to be one of those situations where it's just a blip, or does it become maybe prolonged struggles for Greinke. That's going to be something I want to analyze moving forward. Again, I think the Chicago Cubs certainly could win this series. There's no question. Talent-wise, they're as good as it gets in baseball. They've got a tremendous lineup up and down, 1 through 9, a solid starting rotation. I still have some bullpen issues, but there's no denying the Chicago Cubs have played great baseball through 2 games. But are you getting betting value with them? I still don't think you are. So yes, while they might win this series, might win many of the games in this series, the Chicago Cubs on the value spectrum, they're on the low end of that spectrum and not a team I'm looking to support anytime soon.
Okay, well, those are the 3 series that jumped out at me that I wanted to ask you about specifically. Is there anything else that you'd like to bring to our attention that you think would be valuable for us to think about from the upcoming weekend series?
Well, you know what? We got 3 tremendous series on the way this weekend. I mean, in the NL West, you've got the LA Dodgers and the San Francisco Giants. I mean, that could be a battle for all year long between those 2 teams to win the NL West. That's going to be a tremendous series. Giants at home at AT&T Park. What do you want to watch for in this series, Peter? LA Dodgers are feasting right now on a pathetic, and I mean pathetic, San Diego Padres team. Early here in the week. Let's see now if the Dodgers may be a little bit overvalued coming out of this San Diego series with how easy of a time they've had of it. Now when they play the San Francisco Giants, maybe a little bit overvalued now that they're playing a much better team this weekend. So maybe some betting value this weekend with the San Francisco Giants in this particular series. How about the Red Sox and the Jays? AL East battle this weekend between those 2 teams at the Rogers Center. You got some pretty good matchups, pretty good pitchers there as well. Porcello and Stroman squaring off on Friday. How about R.A. Dickey, Stephen Wright? How about a battle of knuckleballers in that one on Saturday? You don't see that every day. 2 knuckleballers squaring off against one another in the same game. David Price against Marco Estrada on Sunday. Should be a tremendous series. I think both teams wanting to set the tone early on that we're the team to beat here in the American League East. Jay's trying to defend that crown, obviously. And I think the latter 2 games of that series, when you look at the 2 knuckleballers, Wright and Dickey, Estrada coming off a spring where he had some issues with his back, where his arm didn't really get into shape right away due to those back issues. So he might be a little bit rusty early on. And then you look at the knuckleball battle. Stephen Wright not used to pitching at Rogers Center. Those last 2 games of that Jays Red Sox series, Peter, they could be high scoring. So I might look to bet over the total in the last 2 games of that series. And very quickly, Rangers and Angels, AL West battle. Look to bet Texas if it's reasonable to do so in this series. They're a much better, much well-rounded, more complete baseball team, better lineup. I think a better rotation, certainly a better bullpen. I mentioned it earlier in the week. Texas got tons of great live arms in that bullpen that can close out a game when they get the late lead. The LA Angels, Mike Trout's a tremendous player, one of the best in baseball, but outside of that, this lineup is very weak, very paper thin. Albert Pujols is getting older. Cole Calhoun's a solid hitter. Other than that, though, a very weak lineup. They've been outscored by the Cubs 15-1 first 2 games of that series this week. Texas should be able to have their way with it this weekend against the LA Angels in that AL West series battle. But overall, lots of good series this weekend, Peter. I'm looking forward to taking them all in.
Okay, awesome thoughts. Ian Cameron, thanks so much. We'll talk to you again very soon.